Hell no, I won't go. That's what a defiant Assad says. Well, he's not going to go yet. Anyway, we'll have that and a live report from Beirut. All that and more right here, right now on the News Hub. Good morning and welcome. I'm Simon Constable. Let's get straight out to Beirut, Lebanon, where Nour is standing by. Nour, Assad digging in, I hear.
So President Assad gave his first address to the nation in 6 months yesterday, and I have to say it was one that really electrified most Syrians, because a lot of things have changed in Syria since the last time he spoke, namely that a war is raging in most parts of the country, and there was very little recognition of this as a political rebellion again. Instead, the president vowed to fight what he called criminals, puppets of the West, murderers and terrorists, really issuing his harshest call to war against the opposition yet.
Yeah, one of the great quotes in your story says by Assad. He says, quote, "Everyone who comes to Syria knows Syria accepts advice but doesn't take dictation." That coming, of course, from a dictator.
The second key takeaway from the speech was that he was more defiant than ever against international mediation attempts. And the past few months have been focused really on this idea of trying to forge a new political process in Syria that would sideline the president, force him to step down, do something diplomatically to try to stem the daily bloodshed where hundreds of people are dying every day. But he pretty much dismissed all of this. He instead offered his own political reform plan.
Okay, stay with us, Nour. We're going to now bring in Senior Fellow at the Washington Institute, Andrew Tabler. Andrew, this comes after fairly rigorous efforts by Algerian diplomat Brahimi to get a peace deal. It fell apart. Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised at all that this has happened. First and foremost, President Assad, it's very clear, A, exists in a bubble, and B, clearly has the backing of a number of people in the regime. If it was otherwise, it would be hard for him to go forward, I think, with such a speech. Now, exactly what the prospects are for the future and Brahimi's mission are now really called into question. We'll have to wait to see what the UN mission says today and what they think they're going to be doing here in the coming months.
Now, what does the West do, and what do people outside of Syria do, like the U.S.? We're already seeing a bit of troop build-up and equipment build-up in countries surrounding Syria.
Sure. I mean, I think that Nour really hit it on the head. This is a war. President Assad decided in his speech that this was a conspiracy against his rule. It's a war internally. It's an uprising against his rule, against dictation. And Assad is very clear that he wants to fight back. And I think now the negotiated solution that has been put forward by both Russia and I think also by the United States will be that much more elusive. And I think we're now in for a very bloody period fighting it out on the ground.
Okay, what does Brahimi do now?
I think he really has to go back and be very clear. Remember, Brahimi is the successor of Kofi Annan, and his mission, which was designed to try and come up with a plan, the Kofi Annan 6-point plan, to deal with the Syria crisis. It failed. He blamed it on the international community. Okay. Assad's words indicate that perhaps it's not the international community's fault.
Okay. Stay with us, Mr. Tabler. We appreciate that. We're going to go back to Nour now. Nour, the fighting, do we expect this to continue? Do we expect the rebels to continue to be pounded?
Well, the big expectation now is that there's no room for diplomacy anymore, and this is going to be decided on the ground. The problem is it's not quite a stalemate on the ground. I mean, the rebels and the government continue to sort of trade gains in different parts of the country. But what's interesting is that a month ago or 6 weeks ago, we seemed to really think that the rebels were on this surge of momentum. They had taken parts of eastern northern Syria. And now they're complaining that they're not getting as much funds from foreign states anymore, particularly Arab Gulf states. They're not getting the weapons that used to flow in from borders, especially Turkey, and they're stuck. So their question is, if this is going to be decided militarily, then we're going to need a lot more help to decide this out. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a war of attrition, which could take months, if not years, I think.
Okay, that's not a great outlook. Thank you very much, Nour of the Wall Street Journal, coming to us from Beirut there. Back to Andrew Tabler now at the Washington Institute. Andrew, tell us about how the West solves this. This is causing a massive refugee crisis, hundreds of thousands of refugees, just those outside Syria in places like the Lebanon and Jordan and Turkey. And we're seeing buildup of troops in Turkey. We also got U.S. troops in Jordan and in Israel now. Does this just explode into something like 1914 Europe, where everybody suddenly goes at it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think until now, the West, as well as in its allies, I think, have really dealt with just the symptoms of the problem. The problem is the Assad regime's rule over its people, and its bloody rule, and the conflict that it generates. Now we're looking at it. Perhaps it's most important now to deal with the disease itself and not just the symptoms. And then that, in dealing with the disease, and that is the fight in Syria more effectively by backing, for example, the opposition or the armed opposition, that would push Assad from power earlier. It would stop the conflict and stop it from flowing over its borders. But remember, this is just the latest sign, Assad's speech, of an escalation. He's been firing Scud missiles and Fatah 110s against the rebels, and there are a number of reports about concerns about mixing of chemical weapons in the country. This is going bad in a very bad direction very quickly, and I think the international community needs to act.